Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I am your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. It is one of my favorite shows that we do, usually like once a year. It's never really scheduled, but it's a drop show. We got some fancy new toys on Baseball Savant throughout this week. And I'll be honest, I think this is a hot take. I'd say that this recent drop that we got measuring bat path related statistics, I'd argue it's more valuable information than bat speed in some ways. You know, the bat speed stuff was very much paraded around last year by the team, and rightfully so. It was a major break in sort of what was possible to measure and also very easy to understand. And hey, I love bat speed. It's awesome. It's something that I've used to evaluate a lot of my player analysis. So that's great, but I think this stuff is really cool. I think it's really valuable information. I'll get to why in a second, but yeah, we got some bat path metrics on Baseball Savant this week.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it dropped this past week, and I would definitely understand. I definitely understand where you're coming from on this being more important than bat speed, because bat speed can be measured. It's kind of athleticism and also just pure power and maybe a little bit of approach, because sometimes we see a player lengthen their swing and increase their bat speed, or shorten their swing and reduce their bat speed from a tactical standpoint. But this is, I think, definitely tells us a lot more about the identity of the hitter and what they're trying to do when they do make contact with the ball.
Yeah, and exactly. I like this because it makes a lot more sense of some of the statistics that we personally, endorse very heavily on this show. I think a lot of these are timing related metrics, and they can explain things like batted ball profile. They can explain things like batted ball direction. Obviously, we talk about pull rate. We talk about batted ball profiles all the time on this show. And at the end of the day, a lot of those things are results. And this kind of gives us a little deep dive into the process and how certain guys get those kinds of results, which is really cool. Like, this is, at the end of the day, a lot of our analysis over the course of this show has been, this guy is doing this good thing and he's doing that good thing. And we've never really, in many cases, had a why are they doing that good thing. And now we have that for many cases, which I think is going to up our game, certainly. It's going to make, regular people like us a lot smarter, which is, hey, that's always good, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it all of this really is kind of a gift to the public to make the public smarter about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I recall when we had Mike Petriello on a couple of years ago, he said, when testing new stats, he kind of looked at who was prominent in the area of the stat that they were kind of studying or trying to integrate. And I'm sure that one of the people he was looking at when looking at attack direction was Isaac Paredes. And I'm sure he was very happy to see that Isaac Paredes is at the top of the attack direction leaderboards, at least on the pull side. So that certainly makes a lot of sense. A lot of these make a good bit of sense. I was doing a little bit of studying on just the attack angle in correlation with how certain hitters hit. The top 6 hitters in attack angle all have fly ball rates of 32% or higher. And the top 14 all have fly ball rates above the 2025 league average. Typically, the higher your attack angle, the more likely you're gonna hit a fly ball. And attack angle, a higher attack angle, it's the old school way of looking at it is just an uppercut swing. That's kind of what.
Yeah, and this is what I really like about when these sorts of metrics drop, is that like it's putting fancy terms on concepts that we already understand. It's the same thing with exit velocity, right? Like everyone agrees that hitting the ball hard is fine. People don't appear to love the term exit velocity, or at least, maybe in a different timeline. I think people have grown a little more used to it in recent years. Same thing with launch angle over the years. It's the concept of, hey, hitting the ball in the air is good for reasons X, Y, and Z. This is not a foreign concept to anyone, but putting those labels on it, I think people were a little resistant to, and that's kind of the case here. Like we're gonna throw out some fancy terms in the next few minutes when we're going over these stats, but at the end of the day, these are concepts we understand, right? Like you want to lift the ball, you want to put your bat in a position where you're doing so. There's uppercut swings, there's flat swings, and I think another just one really nice thing about this is that like there is no universal this is good, this is not good in this, unlike with bat speed where it's kind of just objective that more bat speed is better. Like that sort of thing doesn't really exist with any of the stats that dropped here.
Right, right. Because yeah, when you look at attack angle specifically, at the top is Eugenio Suarez, very good hitter. At the bottom is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., also a very good hitter. Now I'm sure, I think when we analyze guys, we'd probably want someone more powerful to maybe have a higher attack angle, because,
Mhm.
when you hit the ball in the air and you're more powerful, that obviously runs into good results. Whereas, a Jacob Wilson type, we want to see a lower attack angle because he's probably not going to hit the ball out of the yard. So we want to see an attack angle that's more promoting of, line drives and lower fly balls and stuff that's, not gonna land in outfielders' gloves. But it is cool to look at because, we talk about fly ball rate, line drive rate as underlying numbers to the results that they're getting, their average, their OPS and stuff like that. So this is an underlier to the underlying numbers, which just kind of adds a whole nother layer to everything.
So I do want to just go over some of the terminology here and explain what all of these are. I'll start with swing path tilt, which is essentially like we mentioned uppercut swing, right? Do you have an uppercut swing? Do you have a flat swing? If you've ever watched Riley Green swing a bat, he has what you would definitionally define as an uppercut swing, and these stats kind of confirm that because out of all qualifiers, he has the steepest, I guess, swing path tilt. It's a 46-degree angle that forms if you were to kind of like an incomplete looking circle of the path that his bat travels throughout a swing. And the lowest of which, Kirk, who has a more, flat, like it's not straight, you can't have like a 0% swing path tilt, but it's as close to zero as you're going to get. Same thing with guys like Yandy Diaz as well, who is like a name that I'm very much not surprised to see at the bottom of a list like this as someone who has watched a lot of Yandy Diaz swings.
Right, right. Yeah, it's pretty neat. And yeah, I think this will be very useful on a show like this one. And I'm sure, there's a lot of people who don't, aren't involved in media content, but are just kind of curious as to the reason things happen in baseball, like we all are. And it's another thing to that I'm sure that baseball teams have had for a little while that now the public can kind of get to know and be like, oh, this is why this is occurring. Like, okay, he's hitting more home runs because he's pulling the ball more, and he's pulling the ball more because he's swinging, at that path that pulls the ball more. So, yeah, it's very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the swing path tilt definitely has more to do with batted ball profile and what kind of batted balls you're hitting as opposed to direction. But yes, I mean, like it takes us a little deeper into the process, and it's also stuff that hitters have complete control over, which is really good. Like I think a lot of those kinds of stats where it's entirely something that one player can just change on their own volition. A lot of those were kind of exclusive to pitchers. Have extension, you have release point, you have all of these different stats that a pitcher can sell that can change themselves without the hitter having any sort of say, right? Arm angle is another one that we recently got in the last year, and I think there's been more of those for pitchers than there have been for hitters, with the exception of you could maybe even argue like chase rate, I guess. Like that is something that but that's also kind of dependent on the deceptiveness of a pitcher. But that is a little bit more of a control thing for hitters. But now you have things like this where you can actually really look into changes that are made because the hitter is consciously making them, that where you didn't really have stuff like that before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you have stats like also ideal attack angle, which is
Mhm.
kind of that the attack angle version of sweet spot percentage, which
Right.
kind of represents the ideal launch angle. So this kind of keeps hitters in check on like how efficiently they are swinging the bat. I see Corbin Carroll is second in that category, and I wonder where he
Mhm.
would have been last year, where he
I
wasn't as
can tell
good.
you, I was like literally just on his page a second ago. His ideal attack percent was 53% last year. It's 73.7% this year. Worth noting, and this was something that Mike Petriello talked about in his initial article breaking down these stats. His swing path tilt was 26 degrees in 2023, down to 22 degrees in 2024, and then back up to 26 in 2025. And 2024 was, his sort of down year for at least the first half of that season. He's now doing it, he's now back to being that 2023 version of himself this year, and his swing path tilt is higher. So he was a little too flat with his swing last year. He even said himself in an interview that this was like a cause for his offensive decline through parts of last year. And it's like, like Petriello had mentioned in his article, all of these scientific sounding stats sound like all these nerdy shit and stuff, but like players are using these terms. Players know what this is, and they are using it to their advantage.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of quote unquote complicated terms when simplified are something that, your average, high school baseball coach would
Mm-hmm.
understand. Like, avoid ground balls and pop-ups could also be like avoid hitting the ball outside the 0 to 40 degree launch angle zone. Same thing with a lot of these swing metrics. We don't want to it sounds complex, but when you really break it down, it's basic baseball fundamentals to a degree.
And like this is definitely not, obviously this just became publicly available for us, the fans. I can't imagine that it wasn't available for teams as last year, let's say. Like this is, this data is always out there. Like for example, all of the double A and high A like Statcast metrics, they're all out there. They're just not public. Um for one reason or another. But like if you're Corbin Carroll, like if you're watching film, you might not be able to tell the difference between a 26-degree tilt and a 22-degree tilt. Like having those numbers available to have an answer, like that probably helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's, especially with pitchers continuing to get better and better and more unstoppable and harder to
Mm-hmm.
hit. Yeah, the hitters tend to need any advantage they can get. So this stuff is certainly helping them out. Um, yeah, did you have anything else?
I want to get into attack angle. Which like the definition of attack angle is why I love this so much because it just shows like how hilariously far we've come. So attack angle measures the angle at which the bat is traveling at the last 40 milliseconds before contact is made with the ball, which is just the fact that we have that kind of precision, I think is unbelievable. Not to be confused with launch angle. Launch angle is the angle the ball is going. Attack angle is the angle that the bat is going. And to be able to measure it at such a precise timeline of 40 milliseconds before contact is made. And the interesting thing is, I think this is a timing thing, as it's mentioned in MLB.com's article, because an attack angle changes so many times within a swing, right? Like your bat is constantly it's a down and then back up kind of thing, right? Like that's what a baseball swing looks like. And to, obviously the attack angle is at what angle are you doing it at the time that you hit the ball? If you're late on a pitch, it's if you're early on a pitch, it's probably going to be higher. And that's where you kind of start to make sense of things like Eugenio Suarez, Matt Mervis, Max Muncy, Cal Raleigh, these guys that pull the ball a lot, they're at the top of the attack angle board because they are very out in front of the ball.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that does make a good bit of sense. And yeah, I think when you look at the attack angle, at the high attack angle people, yeah, it tends to be people who are trying to hit more home runs. When you look at the bottom of the list, excluding, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.,
Hmm.
it's some guys who are not as concerned with that. You know, specifically Jacob Wilson, Xavier Edwards, Stephen Kwan. You go down to Joey Ortiz. You know, typically guys who, are
Bryce
trying.
Terang is down there.
Yeah, trying to, hit the ball either on the ground or in the air on a line, trying to get singles, maybe a double here and there. But
Yeah,
knowing that, them putting the ball in the, very high in the air usually doesn't end well. That's typically who are going to be at the bottom of the list.
yeah, and it just makes sense that, when your bat is traveling on an upward angle when it makes contact with the ball, like that's obviously going to cause the ball to go up. Like it makes sense, but you're now putting actual scientific terms, you're putting data into it and getting more precise answers and able to actually speak on this in more exact terms than more just kind of speaking about it vaguely.
Right, indeed, indeed. Yeah, it's pretty neat. And it kind of, you know, add put something quantitative on something that does matter, and I think does get has been talked about or taught by coaches and stuff, that where there was no quantitative data for it, it's just now we have quantitative data for it. So people might kind of get up in arms about it if it's referenced, but it's like, no, these are old school concepts that now have some type of number attached to it.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of attack angle, I think we can get into attack angle percent. MLB defines the ideal attack angle as between 5 to 20 degrees. This actually applies to most swings. So I will say it's not, when we talk about things like hard hit rate and barrel rate and sweet spot rate, and we talk about how much profoundly better league results are when you do those things versus when you don't, that doesn't apply to the same degree with ideal attack angle. The league batting average is 274 on the ideal attack angle, and it's 250 when it's not the ideal attack angle. The difference really comes into slug, because only 14% of swings in 2025 have resulted above the ideal attack angle range, and 30% of swings have resulted below it. So when you're missing that ideal attack angle rate, you're probably below it, and you're probably hitting a lot of ground balls, which is why the league slugging percentage, the league WOBA, those kinds of things are where you see the difference in ideal attack angle.
Right. Yeah. That
I believe the league ground ball rate on like balls in the ideal attack angle is like 36%, and below it is like 57%.
right. And yeah, and pointing out Corbin Carroll again, who had a enormous increase in ideal attack angle, his power numbers have shot through the roof. He's
Yes.
gone from kind of he had 22 home runs last year. He's much more than halfway to that now, and we're only a third of the way through the season. He's on pace for about 45 home runs this year. His barrel rate has more than doubled. His average exit velocity has gone up by more than 4 miles per hour. So he's a great example in how uh, swinging at the ideal attack angle can really put the hitter at a benefit.
Mhm. Yeah, just going through over some of the leaders. Luis Arias is the league leader in ideal attack angle
Yeah.
rate. Corbin Carroll is second. You also have Brenton Doyle, Miguel Vargas, who's had a very solid year in that top four. Kyle Schwarber, Alex Bregman, who have both had up years offensively so far. Juan Soto is there. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Juan Soto, but the metrics do say he's getting unlucky, and I think this would be one of them. And towards the bottom, you see some of those similar names. Worth noting, this is not, super essential. There's Xavier Edwards at the bottom, along with Vlad Jr., Ben Williamson, Stephen Kwan, James Wood. Like the fact that Vlad Jr. and that James Wood are in the top five, both of them, very strong power hitters. Although, both guys that don't pull the ball a lot, have a lot of ground balls. Like you see the mix of both there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm kind of looking around and searching around, and this conversation has kind of inspired some more digging from me, but it's something that it's certainly something to get used to on the website and kind of
Mhm.
seeing how the puzzle pieces fit. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. you have anything else?
Yep, there's one more stat that we have not gone over, which is attack direction. And this is, attack angle is the vertical angle at which the bat is traveling. Attack direction is essentially the horizontal angle, more or less, in which the bat is traveling. And this is another timing metric, like we mentioned. When you're out in front, it's very simple, right? You get out front of the baseball, you're going to pull it. If you get behind it, you're going to go to the opposite field. And it's essentially that concept with numerical data to support it. And Isaac Paredes gets more ahead of the baseball than anyone else. Bryce Terang gets more behind the baseball than anyone else.
Right. It's something that I'm sure we'll both use for how about that's and slightly alarming.
Oh, very much.
Because
maybe I already have.
Yes, perhaps. But because if we're seeing a very good power hitter, get less pull happy, especially in his swing, that's something that's going to raise concern, and maybe it'll diffuse or it'll like diffuse any warning signs if maybe possibly a hitter's not pulling the ball as much as they should, but their attack angle direction is like very very similar. It's like, oh, he's not changing his approach. It's just kind of running into just maybe not timing the ball up well enough, or maybe this isn't as big of a problem as we initially thought it was. So that'll certainly be an interesting concept.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like this is like why I love baseball, because like in the NFL, we need to zoom in on a camera angle with 20 players to be able to tell if that ball was a first down or not. And in baseball, we can measure the horizontal or the vertical angle that the bat is moving at within 40 milliseconds of contact.
Yeah, I wonder if they're still rolling with the regular Hawkeyes. Like, is that what is measuring all this, or have they upgraded since? I did
mean,
wonder.
all of the I don't that would definitely be a question for Petriello if we ever have him back on, because they didn't start tracking any of this until 2023, mid-season 2023. Same goes with bat speed, same goes with all of the like batting stance stuff, which also dropped this year, which is also really cool and something that I've been able to enjoy this year as well. But yeah, this is like we really are in, for now, like kind of a golden age of like new stuff coming out on Savant, and being able to really closely identify some of the inner workings of the trends that we always look at throughout the season.
Yeah, it is crazy to think about, because when we started the show, infield outs above average did not exist.
Nope.
And now we're talking about the the swing tilt on a guy. That's pretty insane. And that's not to say that Baseball Savant wasn't advanced before. It's just they were already advanced, and then they've taken it to another level every single year.
They keep upping the game and like becoming more advanced than the average person is, because like if Baseball Savant hadn't changed since like, I don't know, 2021, like everyone would have mastered the site by now. Like they're constantly giving us new stuff to catch up on, which I enjoy. Like I enjoy getting to learn more, getting to really identify what's going on and why things are happening. And I like that they're keeping us on our toes and adding new things.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, it's a very cool subject, and kind of, yeah, it's just we didn't even know that this was a possibility that Baseball Savant would be dropping this. Like we've thought about other things like probably the caught stealing stuff and like percentage chance of all that. Maybe arm angle and stuff like that. This stuff I don't think was even on anyone's mind. And they just came out and dropped it on us, and it's an absolute pleasure.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, so that is all on that. But that's just to say, that's to introduce to what we will probably incorporate into how about that's and slightly alarmings. But before we get into players to highlight, we do have one more bit of news to get into. Maybe not news, but a team doing well that we did not expect to do well. The Cardinals have won 16 of their last 21 games. They'd won 16 out of 20 before today, Monday, Memorial Day. They have the best NL record in this span.
Yeah.
What have you thought about just the Cardinals just coming out of nowhere?
I mean, I think they're playing some of that Cardinal baseball, right? The exact kind of baseball you see out of St. Louis when they're rolling. They're pitching very well. They're playing excellent defense. The hitting is solid, although not elite, but still they're getting the job done. Uh, Overall, through since May 4th, which is when all of this started, the Cardinals as a pitching staff ranked fourth, I believe it is, in pitcher F WAR, tied for fourth in pitcher F WAR. They have a 2.78 ERA, which is second lowest to only the Minnesota Twins, who we talked about previously on the show. They rank fourth in FIP, and like I mentioned, tied for fourth in F WAR there. And it's been a mix of both the rotation and the bullpen for sure. The rotation is a 2.89 ERA. They're not striking a lot of guys out, but they're also not walking anyone and not giving up any home runs, that is St. Louis Cardinal baseball. How about the bullpen? 0.15 home runs per nine over the last 60 innings
Yeah, that's pretty
in this
insane.
span. That's pretty cool.
That'll help you out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the Cardinals and who's been standing out individually because it seems like the lower FIP guys have higher ERAs and the lower ERA guys have higher FIP. So it's not like,
Yeah.
but it's all balancing out team wise. Because Sonny Gray has a 3.97 ERA, but he does have a 2.82 FIP and also a 2.55 xFIP. Matthew Liberatore has a 1.78 ERA and 2.77 FIP in this span, and obviously both are very, very good. Steven Matz with a 3.52 ERA and 1.52 FIP in 5 relief appearances. Eric Fetty in his 4 starts, 2.55 ERA and 3.85 FIP. And yeah, Kyle Leahy, 8 relief appearances, 2.54 FIP. So yeah, kind of across the board on the pitching side of things, very good. And then on offense, they have the 9th highest weighted runs created plus in this span. I believe Ivan Herrera's been
Yeah, he
doing
just came back.
he's been doing particularly well in the span. Has a 182 weighted runs created plus, a 1007 OPS. Also, Wilson Contreras has an 888 OPS. Brendan Donovan has kind of continued his what's looking like a career year for him. So yeah, they've just kind of done enough on offense while the pitching is dominated.
Yeah, I had to manage something there. Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Mason Wynn's been a really cool revelation this year as well as shortstop position. He came up kind of as like I don't want to say defense exclusive prospect, but that was definitely kind of the name of his game, right? Like we saw him making those crazy throws from short to first. I forget, was it Max Muncy that was like, yeah, who cares? Like if you threw it 83 or whatever. I forget who said that. It was someone on the Dodgers, I believe.
It's funny.
I could be totally wrong, Max Muncy. If you didn't say that, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, he's been a revelation. A 114 weighted runs created plus in this span, along with 0.7, along with some really solid defense. He's not striking out very much. He's actually walking a decent amount. And yeah, just overall, like he's that one of those guys where like as long as he's a league average bat, we're looking at like a 4, maybe even 5 win season. And in fact, he's had a 118 weighted runs created plus throughout this year. So yeah, I love what I'm seeing out of Mason Wynn. Just 23 playing in his first, or I guess his second full season. So that's definitely really encouraging. Yeah, Ivan Herrera's been awesome this year. I mean, he's a beast. Sucks that he had to get injured for that short time, but he's been spectacular this year. Wilson Contreras is hitting. Brendan Donovan has continued to hit as he's done all year. Alec Burleson has hit well in this stretch as well. Like it's been kind of the you don't know how much you would expect out of these guys, but if they're performing, they're the guys you would think are performing. Is kind of how I'd evaluate the Cardinals offense in this span.
Yeah, right, for sure. Like, yeah, you would definitely expect Ivan Herrera after kind of the underlying stuff that he put up last year to to do pretty well. I'm looking at how their playoff odds may have changed here. Because they are at a 35% chance right now, and before this stretch they were at 10%. So they have more than tripled their playoff odds in this span here. I don't know if that includes today and
They
and
did
what they've
lose
done.
today.
Yeah, they did lose today to the Orioles.
They also are not in first in their division either.
Yeah, not in first in their division, but that's why they give you 3 wild card spots here in
Exactly.
2025. So yeah, and I don't know if they would be if they are in a playoff spot now.
How about just like the fact that there is a second NL Central team that's doing something?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
I think just Manfred just called that in. He's like, not everyone else can be mediocre or terrible in
Yeah.
this division.
The Cardinals have a 28.2% line drive rate as a team over this span, which ranks second in baseball. Chris, would you like to guess which team ranks above them?
Highest line drive rate in all of baseball.
Since May 4th, which is when the Cardinals started this run. As an offense, I should note.
It's a good question. I'm trying to think. Like a high contact. Is it the Athletics?
It is not the A's, but that is a good guess.
Um,
Although they have lost 10 straight or whatever, so they are far down the list.
that's unfortunate. Is it a surprise team like the White Sox?
Oh, it's a surprise team, but it isn't the White Sox.
Is it the Rockies?
It is the Colorado Rockies at a 29.3% line drive rate in this span.
Nice.
I wonder, like, are they getting unlucky on those? Like, what is their record? Like 9-52? Like, you have to be getting kind of unlucky, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're really not. Not on
Yeah,
line drives.
I mean, they probably just don't have too much power. They don't have
Yeah,
anyone
I bet their
over-
fly ball rates probably
Yeah,
strikeout rate is bad.
they don't have anyone with more than 8 home runs on the team, and it's almost June.
Yeah.
So they
They
don't have
rank around the league average in fly ball rate over this span.
yeah, and they don't they don't
And
have
given
anyone.
the like the discrepancies between slugging and expected slugging on those fly balls, I'm gonna venture to guess a lot of them went to center.
Right. Like the Rockies, evaluating the Rockies on expected numbers can be weird because
Yeah.
I believe, at Coors, the offensive numbers are always above the expected numbers because, it only accounts for exit velocity and launch angle. It probably stays in the air a little bit more
Mhm.
at Coors, and that's not. I don't think exit velocity really takes that into account. But I'm not, I'm not a physicist, so I'm not completely in the know on that, but that's just kind of an educated guess because I've always noticed that Rockies hitters kind of tend to have higher actual numbers and expected numbers and vice versa with Rockies pitchers. But so yeah, the Cardinals are now a half game out of the third wild card spot. But it's there's a long season ahead. We both had them in last place, and I don't know. It's hard for me to feel any different. I feel like this is just kind of a random stretch. I'm not really encouraged by it necessarily.
That's fair. I mean, like, yeah, they do have the second highest BABIP in the league over this span, but then again, they also have the second highest line drive rate.
That does tend to help you out, but
Yeah.
actually, I should see who they have defeated in this run. I mean, they did win a series against the Mets.
They swept the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, they swept the Diamondbacks, which did surprise me.
Not bad competition.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. A team we both thought was gonna, be the 4 seed in the National League playoffs. And won a series against Kansas City, who's looking decent. Won a series against Philly in Citizens Bank Park.
As a pitching staff, they have the fourth highest ground ball rate as a staff, 45.7%. And like we're playing good defense, they lead the league in outs above average this year. The infield is always particularly good for the Cardinals. So that's definitely a pretty clear recipe for success there is, you play good enough defense. If you induce enough ground balls, like you will find your way into plenty of outs. And that's exactly what they've done.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, when pitching to contact is a lot easier when you have the most outs above average in baseball. That's for sure. I mean,
that's exactly what they do.
yeah, it worked for them in in 2021 when they had, I think, 5 Gold Glovers on their team or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is funny that like, they just won a series against Arizona, won a series against Philly, won a series against the Mets, and it would be funny if it all came crashing down in Baltimore. Sometimes baseball works like that. And that literally kind of happened to the Angels. They were on a hot streak. They swept the Dodgers, I think. And then they lost a series to the Marlins at home, I'm pretty sure.
Something like that. The
Yeah,
Cardinals, 25.4% of fly balls they've allowed as a staff have been pulled in this span. That is the 9th lowest in the majors.
that's very good. That's a recipe for success. Probably is somewhat
Going
correlated
into
to
the not allowing a lot of home runs, which they've done
yeah.
in this span,
Yeah,
along with, low fly ball rate, I would imagine.
yeah, I was about to say that. I'm sure that's somewhat correlative to
What percent
the
of
very
their
low
fly
home run
balls
rate they've
against
allowed.
have been barreled? That's a question that I have.
It's a good question.
It's actually pretty close to league average. But hey, they're not pulling them, so it doesn't really matter
Yeah, and
as
it's not like
much.
they've really been in some home run deserts.
No,
That's the term. Like
no.
when they played Detroit, they played them at home, so that's not a thing. And I mean their home ballpark, I'm pretty sure the dimensions are fairly average.
Yeah.
They did play in Kansas City, so maybe they had a little bit of luck there. But Philadelphia is not a pitcher's park necessarily. I don't think Nationals Park is either. Um, but yeah, good for them. I'll keep them on my radar because
Yeah.
they are half a game out of a wild card spot, and they're not far from the Chicago Cubs right now. Like if they swept them in a series, I think they would take first place. Yeah, they would take first place.
I think they're like 2 games up.
Um,
Yep,
yeah,
2 games up. Oh,
exactly
the
two
Cubs are
games
two
up.
games up. The Cardinals are 2 games down.
Yeah. So yeah, it is something to
Although the
keep on
Cubs
the
did
radar.
win today. Did the Cardinals play today? Did they win?
They lost the
Okay,
Orioles
so they're 3 down now.
3 down. So
The Cubs do
if they swept that
unfortunately
series,
for the Cardinals, the Cubs do play the Road Rockies this week.
yikes.
Somehow we found a way to bring the Rockies up twice in this Cardinals segment. It's not very nice.
It's an anomaly. I mean, they're trying to top the
Yeah.
2024 White Sox, and
Looking back,
they
I
did
should
do
have
it.
for one of my bold predictions, I should have had like a non-White Sox team will break the 2024 White Sox record of most losses in a season,
Yeah, I had Angels worse than White Sox. That
which isn't
we're
looking
not
great.
we're not pacing well for that.
No.
Um, but
My White Sox multiple All-Stars take is definitely not looking good.
mm,
I don't think that one's gonna happen.
yeah, I don't think I'm on track for any of mine, but
My
I do.
best hope for that one is that somehow Shane Smith doesn't get the nod for some reason, and then he gets like one of the like, oh, this pitcher isn't like he's pitching on Sunday, so we're just
Yeah,
gonna throw Shane Smith in there. But the problem would be that he has to somehow not be the guy originally, and I don't know how that's gonna happen.
right. Yeah,
Maybe Martin Perez in his 20 innings, in which he's
possibly.
been pretty good. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, anything more before we get into players to highlight?
I think we can go ahead and do that.
Wonderful. Yeah, now we will get into our Memorial Day 2025 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, so for my slightly alarming today, I'm talking about a guy that was involved in our bold predictions pod, as previously mentioned. Another one that's definitely not looking good, not just because this guy's been struggling, but because a key factor in this prediction has not happened. I'm talking about Sandy Alcantara from the Miami Marlins, who is still in the National League. And at this point, it would be very difficult for him to win a Cy Young in the American League.
yeah.
So I don't know how that's going to happen. And even then, I mean, he's got a lot of catching up to do because he has an 8.04 ERA and 5.32 FIP across his 47 innings and 10 starts this year. He's made the normal amount of starts, but doesn't qualify for the ERA title, which is like kind of how you know that things are going bad, because that's never a good sign. Among the 125 pitchers with at least 40 innings pitched this year, he has the highest ERA He has the 9th highest FIP and tied for the 5th lowest FWAR. And there are a lot of I mean, when you have an 8.04 ERA, clearly there's a lot that has to go wrong. But for me, the biggest thing is the way that his arsenal is working. I don't know if he's calling the pitches, if the catcher's calling them, if Clayton McCullough is calling them, but something is just not working with how he is using his arsenal this year. When you think of Sandy Alcantara, you think of, you know, pitching to contact, comparatively speaking, like more for him than for other, you know, dominant pitchers of this time. You think of a sinker, you think of a slider, you think of a changeup, you think of, you know, those kinds of off speed types of fastball pitches, things that can get you ground balls. However, Sandy Alcantara has used his four-seam fastball as his primary pitch this year for the first time since 2019. And opponents have responded accordingly. They are hitting 315 and slugging 611 against his four-seamer this year. The whiff rate on this pitch has gone from 26.8% in 2023 to just 14.9% this year. It also has a 96.6 mile per hour average exit velocity against, which is the highest among the 177 pitchers with at least 25 batted balls recorded against a four-seamer. So essentially, Sandy Alcantara's best pitch, or well, not best pitch, but the pitch that he just entirely doesn't work at all. The sinker and changeup have been fine. They haven't been great. Like, he would still be having a down year, even if his four-seamer was like third most in his arsenal. But there's really just no reason for him to be using the four-seamer, you know, that much. And I don't really know why he's been doing that this year. 48.6% of batted balls against Sandy have been pulled this year, which is an 11.8% increase over 2023. And additionally, his chase rate has gone from 34.8% against to just 24% against in 2025. Decrease in chase rate, which has naturally led to a 5.3% increase in walk rate. So, you know, obviously he's not getting as much chase. He's throwing more balls and thus walking more batters, as long with just being, you know, being shelled in pretty much all of the starts. Yeah, this is pretty bad, especially because, you know, I think potentially a lot of this Marlins season was in some ways hinging on whatever they were going to be able to potentially get for Sandy Alcantara at the deadline. I've always been a bit skeptical as to if they were going to trade him at all or not. But I don't know, his value is definitely decreasing by the start. And even if you're getting him for relatively cheap, if you were to trade for him, right, it's another 2 years and 34 million on that contract. It's definitely becoming less and less attractive as these starts go on. And that's kind of unfortunately how things have been going for essentially one of the main bright spots for this Marlins team going into the season. And yeah, Sandy Alcantara is getting a slightly alarming.
Yeah, Sandy Alcantara.
Slightly alarming.
And yeah, I am doubling down. Because
Yeah.
I also have Sandy Alcantara as yeah, it kind of makes sense. You know, it's been long enough to where it is very noticeable. But and yeah, I did also find that funny that he's not qualified among starters, even though he hasn't missed a start, because he's averaging less than 5 innings per start, which is very ironic considering he won the 2022 Cy Young, you know, with innings being a heavy factor in that. But through his first 10 starts, Sandy Alcantara has an 8.04 ERA, 5.32 FIP, and 5.05 expected ERA, and 47 innings pitched. Out of 125 pitchers to throw 40 plus innings pitched, heading into Monday, Alcantara had the worst ERA, 9th worst FIP, and 16th worst expected ERA. From 2023 to 2025, his walk rate has gone from 6.3% to 11.6%, as you kind of talked about. And yeah, that chase rate has gone from 35% to 24%. And out of 96 pitchers to throw 400 plus pitches this year, heading into Monday out of the zone, he had the 6th lowest chase rate. And also, out of 125 pitchers heading into Monday, Sandy Alcantara's walk rate was 9th highest. So hitters are not chasing out of the zone as much. Perhaps that maybe has a little bit to do with him throwing more four-seamers because it is less deceptive. It's coming right at you. But along with the problems of not getting hitters to chase and walking more batters, he's allowing harder contact. His average exit velocity against has gone from 88.8 miles per hour to 91.2 miles per hour. And out of 113 pitchers to throw 750 plus pitches this year, his average exit velocity against is the ninth highest. His fly ball rate against has also gone from 21.5% to 26.4%. And barrel rate has gone from 7.0% to 10.1%. And I'm mentioning 2023 to 2025 because obviously he didn't pitch last year due to Tommy John surgery. So that's the biggest change that we can mention. And that increase in fly ball rate and barrel rate has led to his home run rate increasing from 2.9% in 2023 to 3.7% in 2025. And yeah, I'm sure that four-seam fastball has a good bit to do with that. As you know, four-seam fastballs are more fly ball prone. That and him throwing the fastball, four-seam fastball more means he's throwing that sinker and changeup less, which induce more ground balls. So it does make sense that he's allowing more fly balls, and usually the trade-off of throwing less sinkers and throwing more four seamers is hopefully you get more swing and miss, but that doesn't even look like the case for him, unfortunately.
No.
So yeah, that's a lot of the reason he's struggling. And from both of us, Sandy Alcantara is getting a
slightly alarming.
All right. So now we go from the lows to the highs, talking players or subjects that have been outperforming expectations with our Memorial Day 2025 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
And he is getting a
How about that?
Yeah, so for my how about that, I am talking to a guy that, well, we kind of hinted at it earlier, has improved his process and gotten the results. I'm talking about Taylor Ward from the Los Angeles Angels, who has been one of the best hitters throughout the month of May. Since May 4th, that same day that the Cardinals took off, Taylor Ward also took off. He is slashing 308, 352, 769 for an 1122 OPS over that span with a 201 weighted runs created plus and 1.3 FWAR. Among the 184 qualifiers throughout this span, he ranks first in slugging, third in OPS, tied for fourth in weighted runs created plus, and tied for second in FWAR. So yeah, he's been a top 5 position player in the league, and maybe even more than that throughout the month of May. Throughout the season, Ward has improved his timing. He is getting more in front of the ball this year. Last year in 2024, his average point of intercept has gone from 0.5 inches in front of home plate to 3.6 inches in front of home plate this year. What does that mean? Well, it means that Taylor Ward, when his bat makes contact with the ball, last year he was making contact on average pretty much at the start of home plate. This year he's doing it much more in front of home plate, 3 inches ahead of it to be exact. And he's not moved his stance at all. He's not standing any further back in the box than he was last year. His feet are a little bit wider apart, but that's not going to really make a difference in terms of that. So what does that mean? It means he's getting ahead of the ball. He's timing up his swings better. He's getting more to the pull side. That's at least what that data would suggest. And in fact, his average attack angle has gone from 9 degrees last year to 12 degrees this year. His average attack direction has gone from 0 degrees last year to 5 degrees to the pull side this year, which makes him one of just 12 qualifying hitters to change their average attack direction by 5 degrees in either direction. So pretty much that kind of confirms everything did, right? Taylor Ward is making contact with the ball further ahead of home plate, and naturally, because of that, he's pulling the ball more. Last year, he had a pull rate of 32 degrees. This year, before this span, when he wasn't even getting results, his pull rate was 33%, still higher than his pull rate from last year. But in this span where he's actually getting the results, his pull rate is 47.4%. His pull rate on fly balls has gone from 17.6% before the span to 30.4% in the span. And his barrel rate on fly balls has gone from 26.5% to 52.2%, which is the 9th highest among the 194 hitters with at least 10 fly balls since May 4th. Additionally, his overall barrel rate of 22.8% third behind Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto among the 124 hitters with elite balls since May 4th. So exactly like I said, this is what we have the capability of doing now with these new metrics, is looking at a guy like Taylor Ward that, by the way, has been getting these kinds of results the entire year in terms of he's hitting the ball out in front of home plate more. He's, hitting the ball in the pull direction more. He has a little more of an uppercut to his swing at the point that he's making contact with the ball. And it took a while for him to get those results, but we're seeing it now, and he's been a top 5 hitter in the sport ever since. So Taylor Ward and his process, he's pulling the ball more. He's getting out. How about that?
Yeah, Taylor Ward.
How about that?
Yeah, one has been one of the key factors in the Angels kind of climbing up their or at least increasing their playoff odds, whatever they are.
They got to 500. I don't know
They
how
got to
much
500. They won.
How
won
much have
8
their
in a
playoff
row.
odds increased over the last week?
Yeah, it's gone from 1% to 3%.
Yeah.
No,
literally.
Because I forgot off the top of my head how many in a row they won, and I think they won 8 in a row, but they did lose the last 2, I'm pretty sure.
They're oh shoot, I picked AL Central. They were down to 0.5% on May 15th. They are up to 3%. They went up to 3%. You were pretty much on the nose.
I was right. Yeah.
You were pretty much on the nose. You actually give them a little too much credit by saying 1%.
Well, you round up.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. 0.5 does round up to 1.
With my stats, I like to round up sometimes.
Yeah, that is true.
Make it more audibly, because I think it'll be more better audibly. Yeah, and also shout out to you. You put him top 10 left fielder, which
I did.
Yeah. I think you put him number 7. So it's looking
something
good.
Like that. Left field was a tough one.
It was. Yeah, outside of
one of the weakest positions.
Outside of like the top 7 was really tough.
Yeah.
And I think I had Tyler O'Neill in there, which isn't looking great.
Well,
a couple other guys. I think I put,
if the season started and ended on opening day, Tyler O'Neill's number 1. So if you think about it, he's not that bad.
Yeah, he's a 6-time MVP winner, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, my player to highlight, my how about that is another Angel, but I'm not doubling up on players. It's a different player. Talking about Nolan Schanuel, who I've been impressed with over the last 17 games, as he in his previous 17 games heading into Monday, he was hitting .368 with a .500 on base percentage and .991 OPS. Out of 188 qualifiers in the span, he ranked 10th in average, 2nd in on base percentage, and 19th in OPS. But I'm a little bit more impressed on about what he's done under the surface. I guess under the surface meaning like the 2022 definition, not the current definition, I guess, because there's so much under the surface. But out of 111 hitters to see 250 plus pitches in the span, his expected batting average ranks 1st, and expected WOBA ranks 4th. He's actually underperforming his expected batting average by around 20 points and his expected WOBA by almost 30 points. So even though he has a .991 OPS in these 17 games, he probably should have even better numbers. Part of this has to do with making more contact. His strikeout rate has gone from 14.7% before the span to 9.6% in this span. Out of 188 qualifiers, his strikeout rate was 8th lowest. His walk rate has also gone from 9.3% to 19.2%. Out of 188 qualifiers, his walk rate was 2nd highest. And this has made his walk to strikeout ratio go from 0.6 to 2.0. And out of 188 qualifiers, that walk to strikeout ratio ranked 2nd. Along with that, he's hitting the ball harder. His average exit velocity has gone from 86.7 miles per hour to 89.9 miles per hour. And then along with making more contact, walking more, and hitting the ball harder, he's also doing better directionally. His ground ball rate has gone from 47% before the span to 29% in this span. And out of 65 hitters with 50 plus batted balls in this span, Shauna Wells' ground ball rate was the fourth lowest. And his line drive rate had gone from 27% to 41%. Out of 65 hitters with 50 plus batted balls in this span, Shauna Wells' line drive rate was the highest in baseball. So everything is going right for him. And especially for a guy who probably doesn't possess too much power, this is kind of what you want to see is high line drive rate, making contact at all costs. And, a bonus is just walking at almost a 20% rate also. That's also a very, very key thing that he's doing. And that's resulted in a 500 on base percentage, 991 OPS, highest expected batting average in a 17-game sample. Yeah, he's doing wonderfully on the surface and very much so under the surface as well. So Nolan Schanuel is getting a.
How about that?
When was the
So
last time we did this much pro Angels propaganda on the show between you and I?
I really anchor
I
it.
think this is the most you've ever done.
Yeah, I think it's the one. Yeah, the one. How about that? I may do a year on an Angel. I've done Reed Detmers before. I think that was 2 years
Yeah.
ago. I'm trying to think
I
if
did him last year.
Yeah. So I probably didn't end up doing any Angels last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's rare. It's rare
I
for me
did
to speak positively about the
Andrew
Angels.
Wantz in 2023.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember listening to that or hearing that as we were in my townhouse room
It was
because
like very I went reliever diving on
I
like the
think it was
third
the
week of
first
April.
yeah, it was the first reliever dive of the year and it was like we
We
got to
haven't
get an
done one yet
Angel out of
this
the
year.
way. Yeah, because the Angels, especially, Trout Otani era,
Yeah.
it was especially, obviously they're going to do well, but it's like, who else is going to do well?
Yeah.
So you gotta grab anybody that's trending somewhat upward. But yeah, those are all the players to highlight. Any last words before we send the show off?
No, I think that's it. I don't know. I've uh I've reached the age where I'm considered like a lost cause if I'm still in double A. I'm not handling that truth very well.
That is weird. Yeah, it's very strange
Yeah.
seeing like a guy our age like not only in the league but like very respected in the league is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
But it is a
I
reminder that the life of an athlete is extremely unique because, you know, you shouldn't, we're 24, we shouldn't have our stuff figured out really.
I'm 25
Or yeah, you're 25, I forgot. Yeah.
as of yesterday.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
shout out to Daniel. He turned 25 on May 25. So it's I
In
believe
2025.
in 2025. I believe that's called a golden birthday when
That's
you
what I've heard.
yeah.
I'm so out of touch with reality if it doesn't exist in baseball. I had like three people say that to me yesterday, and I was just like, is that a thing? Like that's a 25 thing?
Well,
I don't know where that like comes from or anything.
I
But
heard it
multiple
13 years ago because I I'm a November 11 birthday. So I think just the later in the month your birthday is, that's when you start hearing about it. Um,
Interesting. Okay, I heard it. What is it a 25 specific thing? Because I've never had someone say it to me like at any birthday in my life, and I had
golden
like three people say
birthday
it to me
mean
yesterday. Yeah, what
we're
does that mean?
yeah, we're gonna screen share here above replacement radio on YouTube. If you're still around, we are answering the question, what is a golden birthday? Um, what
Oh, okay, it's 25 on the 25th. Okay, I gotcha. All right. Yeah, okay, so that's what it is. So it depends on. All right.
there's a dictionary definition?
I
Really
get,
did.
yeah, okay. It's if you turn a certain age on the same day, like I did. Like I turned
Yeah.
25 on the 25th. It also happens to be the year 25.
Yeah, so no, there's no golden birthdays after 31. So
Yeah.
people will have it figured out by then.
I've like
Typically.
I mean, if you go by year, I've only had golden birthdays. I was born in 2000. I turned 1 in 01, 2 in 02, and so forth. So if you go by year specifically, I've really only had golden birthdays up until this point in my life and will continue to do so for another 6 years.
Yeah, shout out to the 2000 babies,
Yeah.
the Y2Ks,
Yep.
I believe. Yeah.
Great year to have been born. Just in like, I remember when I was in like sixth grade, I was in like science class, and this is when we were learning like astronomy. And we were learning about like, rare like weather events, like eclipses and whatnot. And I remember there was one where it was like the next time this specific event happens will be in 2065 on this date. Like, how old will you be at that point? And I was like, the answer is 65. I don't even have to do any math or anything. I just know that.
Right. And then they're like, well, it's gonna be in February of 2065. It's like, no.
Oh no. What do you mean I'm not gonna be the same age as the year?
What it's so hard to figure out now.
Yeah,
How old
exactly.
am I gonna be?
I don't know. I can't. What am I? I'm 11 years old in sixth grade. I can't figure that out yet.
Um, but yeah, no, yeah. Daniel had a nice Memorial Day birthday weekend, went to Fenway, watched a
Saw some of the worst baseball I've seen in person
very
in a
uneventful
while.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but they're
Watching bad games in person is tough. It's a tough experience.
yeah, no, I never
Like
because
even if you don't have a rooting interest, I've
yeah,
seen some bad games, man.
I realize my passion as a fan is so much different at the game than watching on TV. Watching on TV, watching the Red Sox lose, it's like, okay, whatever, I can move on. But w when you're in person, you're so invested in that day. And if you watch
Mhm.
a real piece of crap baseball game, it's like I drove
Yeah, exactly.
hours to get here.
I drove across state lines.
Yeah.
It says I have to work tomorrow. I'm driving from Boston to Binghamton within the night. That's like a 5 hour drive.
Yeah.
And what do I get treated to? A 5-1 loss where the Red Sox allow a little league home run to drop below 500 for like the 12th time this year
Against the one
against
of the
one of the
teams in
worst teams in the
baseball
league. Yeah.
this year. Yeah. Um, yeah, that being at a game does change things. I'm never a bigger fan than when I'm at the game, and I'm sure that's the case for most people. But
Hmm.
considering that I
Yeah,
am,
I know. I can second that. Like as someone, I don't know what, I don't want to know what my screen time is like on my phone. Like I very intentionally avoid looking at that because I don't want to know. I do not go on my phone when I'm at games unless it's in between innings. That's like or pitching changes. Like if they are in play, I am not touching it.
yeah, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Except in between innings, and I do dehydrate myself to a degree so that I'm not up going to the bathroom multiple times. Not only, I don't want to miss the game, but also I'm very self-conscious, and I don't like making people stand up typically.
Hmm.
Which so
So
yeah.
you're an aisle seat on a plane kind of guy.
Um no, I'm window seat, so I
Okay.
don't have to end up standing up. Um
I commit to that hard. Like if I'm window seat, I will not get up.
yeah, right.
I don't care how long the flight is. I won't do it. I am so serious when I say this. I don't know the last time I've ever gotten up on a plane. I've flown like a decent amount over the last like 4 years. I go for window seat when I can. Southwest has non-assigned seating, which is mostly when I fly. Like if I get window seat, I am staying there and I am not moving. That is a guarantee.
Yeah, I think we're very similar in that. And
Hmm. I have
I
some
believe
long flights coming up though, so I'm really gonna have to put myself to the test in July.
yeah, I believe like my only times getting up to go are like international flights or like a flight to California. But that's really it. And I think even when I went to California during college, I don't
From
think
Massachusetts, by the way,
yeah,
or
right.
Connecticut, I guess.
But granted, it was I think like it was from Chicago because there was a layover, but still, it's like a four and a
Still,
half hour
yeah,
flight. And yeah, I did not get up. I
yeah,
was I was middle seat for the last of
that's
those, so
tough.
that
That's
I
tough.
was in a row where people can complain sometimes. So I took the middle seat so I didn't have to hear the complaining.
Yeah.
Can get into that later, but yeah, I think that does it for this show. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. On the YouTube channel, we discovered what a golden birthday was.
Yeah.
Just screen shared that.
Learning so much every day, whether it be bad path metrics or whatever a golden birthday is.
Yeah, it's like oh yeah, it's a coincidence, I guess. It's cool.
Yeah.
But and yeah, if you hop on the YouTube channel, check out our guest interviews playlist. We have a plethora of guests on the 5-year history of this show, including Jeff Passan, Chris Rose, Foolish Bailey, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello. Mike Petriello, very significant now as he
Yeah.
his website has just released
Just keeps
even
doing
more
the damn
stuff.
thing.
Yeah, and it is funny that conversation was 2 summers ago, right?
Yes, it was when I was in the cave.
So to think of even the progress that's been made since then, and we
I
talked
remember
about,
2 years ago, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna change up the like the sliders on the front page."
Yeah.
And we were like, "Whoa!" And thank God they did, because I can't. The old ones are so ugly now that we look like. Those
Yeah,
were
that's true.
those were rough.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So yeah, go check out the Mike Petriello interview. He has a lot of good insight on just kind of how Baseball Savant works from the inside. And yeah, follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter, @Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram @Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram @Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball. Once again, see you then.
This conversation is over.